4 years ago in 2017, I started this YouTube channel. I built it from the ground up while I was a medical student, and then when I graduated university for the next 2 years while working full-time as a doctor in the UK's National Health Service. So for 3 years, I was working on the business part-time in my evenings and weekends, and now we've grown to a team of 10 full-time staff with around $3 million in annual revenue and nearly 2 million subscribers here. So if you're new here, then do please consider subscribing to get that number up. Anyway, in this video, I want to take you through the 3 stages of that journey, and I'm going to share the lessons I've learned along the way so that hopefully it can help you in your entrepreneurial or creative journey. Let's get into it. So whenever we're starting any kind of business or creative journey or trying to get anything at all off the ground, usually we're going to be doing it ourselves in the first instance. It's always really nice to have co-founders, but for something like a YouTube channel, you know, it ends up being a very solo activity. And so for me, while I was working solo on the YouTube channel and the business for the first 2 years, there were a handful of principles that I found really, really helpful in making that happen in a productive fashion. Firstly, there's the idea of thinking in systems. Now, when it came to churning out 2 YouTube videos every week, it was going to be pretty unsustainable to kind of treat those videos as like one heavy lift at a time. And that's how I kind of got started, that, okay, I need to make one video. Cool, that video's done. Now I need to make the next one. Cool, that's done. Now the next one, and so on. And very quickly I realized that this was going to be unsustainable. And so instead, I tried to figure out, what is the system behind this? Can I build some sort of system that systemizes the process in a way of making YouTube videos? And so that involved mapping out what are the different stages within the system of creating a video, like idea generation, then writing, then scripting, and then filming, and then titles and thumbnails and editing. And I tried to do my best to make the entire workflow as efficient as possible, and also to batch similar tasks. So for example, I would have like a writing day where for the whole day, I would just kind of write bullet point talking points for my next like 10 to 20 videos. And I would do that all in one go. And then when I would have 10 or 20 videos prepared, I would try and film a bunch of them all in one day once I'd already gone through the sunk cost of setting up all the equipment. And then when it came to editing the videos, I'd actually be able to edit in my spare time. So for example, when I was a medical student and preparing for finals, there'd be like 2 hours in the evening between, you know, I'd study from like 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. And then from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. for that 2-hour window, I would just do editing on whatever needed editing. And then from 8 p.m. till like 1 a.m., me and my friends would play Avalon and Articulate, fantastic board games, by the way, in my room. And so I guess the lesson here is that whatever you're trying to work on, if you think of it as a system rather than as you doing a heavy lift every single time, then the whole process of creating this thing as a solo creator or entrepreneur becomes a lot easier. Lesson number 2 that I learned very quickly is that friction is the most powerful force in the universe, and that anything I can do to minimize the friction in getting stuff done was gonna pay dividends in the long run. When I was first starting out the YouTube channel and I didn't want to spend money on stuff, I would like literally stack my camera on top of a bunch of books and use those as a makeshift tripod. And then I realized after a while that like, why am I trying to save like $20 on the cost of a tripod? Because it's just so much friction in getting my medical textbooks and turning them into a tripod every time. And so I spent that $20 buying a tripod, and suddenly it cut down the friction of filming a video by about 5 minutes. And that 5 minutes made an absolutely massive difference. Then after a while, I realized that it was taking about 20 minutes every time to set the camera up, put it on the tripod, get the angles, get the lighting right. And so I tried to find a camera angle in my room where I could just leave the camera up at all times and only take it down if I absolutely had to. And this friction thing applies to all other aspects of life as well. Like, you know, when my guitar is right next to me on the sofa, I practice the guitar around 10 times more than when my guitar is in another room, out of sight, out of mind. If I was studying for exams, again, I realized that reducing the friction to, you know, having my books and my laptop like right next to my desk, rather than having books on the bookshelf, just, you know, those 3 meters in between my desk and my bookshelf made it so much more likely that I was actually gonna do some work rather than procrastinate because, who can be bothered to get up and take a book off the bookshelf? And then principle number 3 is the idea of productive downtime. Now, whenever we're working on any of these things as solo entrepreneurs or creators or hobbyists or whatever, and we have a lot of interests that we wanna sort of cram into our time in like a way that's still fun and sustainable and like not burnouty, then I think the idea of productive downtime is quite helpful. So for example, when I was working full-time as a doctor for 2 years, it wasn't so intense that every single day I was like working from like 8 in the morning till 6:30 in the evening. There would often be moments of downtime. Like for example, the ward round is finished in the morning and now there's this like half an hour window where we're waiting for all the scans and bloods and stuff to come back. And there's actually nothing objectively that we have to do in that time. Now, what most of my friends at work would do is, you know, get on their phones and scroll social media or whatever. I would do that as well, but I realized on some days that in that half an hour window, or even if that window was 10 or 15 minutes, I could actually use that time to plan another video or to start drafting out the structure for an online course. And so the lesson here is that if you're working on stuff that's taking up a lot of time, you actually can use your downtime in a productive fashion. Obviously, what I'm not saying is don't take a break and work 24/7. I'm not about that life at all. I'm all about enjoying the journey, having fun along the way. But realistically, if we imagine how much time we spend like on the toilet scrolling through Twitter or just chilling, just browsing Instagram on our phone, I find that that's not actually particularly fulfilling or enjoyable for me. And if I spent that half an hour on the toilet planning out videos or stuff instead, I got a lot more joy out of it and my legs got a lot less dead than they did when I was just scrolling Twitter. Stage 2, building a team. So after 2 years of working as an entirely solo entrepreneur / creator by myself, in June 2019, so 2 years ago now actually, I decided I was gonna try and outsource the editing of these videos to a freelancer. Now there were a few things that led to this insight. There's a concept that Naval Ravikant talks about a lot in his Twitter account, which is figuring out our effective hourly rate. Like how much would our time be worth if we were to charge it out to someone else? And I found that my effective hourly rate, I think at the time was around $30 an hour-ish. And I realized that if it's taking me somewhere between 4 and 8 hours to edit every single video, maybe that's not the most value I could be adding to the business. And so what I did is I went on a website called People Per Hour and I found a fantastic freelance video editor who then started editing my videos for the next few months. Now, this was absolutely game-changing because all of a sudden, those like 20 hours a week that I was spending editing my own videos, that was completely gone. And until I did it, I didn't realize just how much time I was spending on the editing stuff and how much more my brain would be unlocked to be able to do more interesting things when I didn't have to edit my own videos. These days when I teach my course at Part-Time YouTuber Academy, anytime we get one of the things we always talk about is outsource editing as soon as you can, provided you can afford it. And anytime a student's done it, they've always been like, oh, I was really shy about this initially. I didn't want to outsource editing. I wanted to hold on to it myself. But then when they do it, they're like, oh my God, I feel like a breath of fresh air. This whole weight has been taken off my shoulders. There's so much I can now do now that I don't have to do the editing myself. And this lesson applies even if you're not a YouTuber. Like whatever project or entrepreneurial endeavor or creative endeavor you're working on, you probably could outsource some elements of it so that you don't necessarily have to do them yourself. Anyway, outside of the freelancer thing, the most important lesson I learned during this period came from a book called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And this is like a book that has genuinely changed my life and changed the game for the business. Because his model here, which I just had never heard before, is that actually to run a great business, you don't just need to be a good technician. So the role of the technician was the one that I was doing, like writing videos, filming videos, editing videos. It's very like technical stuff, actually doing the work. To run a great business, you also need to be an entrepreneur, thinking ahead and making like big plans. And also a manager, like knowing exactly what's happening in the business day to day and being able to delegate things appropriately. Then a few months after reading this book, the business was making enough money to actually be able to afford a full-time employee, a full-time team member. And I was really scared about hiring my first full-time employee. I remember thinking, oh, but you know, now I have to pay the salary. Now we have to make a certain amount of money each month. What if the YouTube channel fails? What if this stuff doesn't work out? But after reading a bunch of books about this and talking to a few friends and mentors who've run businesses, they all basically said that, look, when you hire a full-time team member, it will just completely change the game for you, because now it's not just you doing the thing and it's not just you like having all the responsibility. You can offload some of that responsibility and ownership onto this other person. And so in around October of 2019, 2 and a bit years into starting the YouTube channel, I hired Christian as our head of content / video editor, and he was the first full-time team member that we had. And I think this was one of the pivotal moments for the business where like at the time I could barely just afford to kind of pay Christian's salary each month. The money was coming in and it was basically going straight out into his salary. But that was an inflection point in the business where for a few weeks, it was that like very kind of money was coming in and immediately going out, and it was quite scary. After those few weeks, the extra output and productivity that we as a bit in the business as a whole unlocked, thanks to having not just me doing it, but having 2 of us kind of focusing on the business, that skyrocketed our growth and our revenue and was able to make more courses. And then I joined Standard, my YouTube agency, which was amazing from the sponsorship front. And I think if I'd stuck to my kind of risk-averse attitude of I don't want to spend money on paying someone's salary, I don't think that would have happened. I think I would have been stuck kind of in the mode of trying to do everything myself. And so obviously you can't do this when you're right at the start of your journey and you're not making any money at all. You do have to have that period where you're doing everything yourself. And that was me for 2 years. But now, having spoken to a lot of pretty big YouTubers, I think a lot of them, even though they can afford it, they're afraid for various reasons to make the leap into hiring team members full time. But honestly, for me, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made, and Christian has been awesome, and he's probably the one editing this video, so maybe he keeps this in. So then for the next year, from October 2019 through to August 2020, the team expanded by 2 people. We brought on Angus, who started off as a writer, helping me research scripts for some of my videos. But then he ended up taking a far more kind of managerial role in the business. And that was really cool because then I could give Angus ownership of things, be like, hey, we want to do this project. Can you just make it happen? And Angus is great in actually getting stuff done and making things happen. And that was another kind of light bulb moment for me, whereby, again, it was amazing to not to actually have to do everything myself and to recognize that I can ask someone to do it instead. And as long as I set a reasonable vision and what success looks like, then people are quite happy to take an idea and run with it and actually make it happen. And then after Angus, we had Elizabeth, who joined as my personal assistant for a little bit, but then very quickly her role morphed into kind of, again, more manager stuff and leading projects and helping out with our part-time YouTuber academy. And then she started her own YouTube channel as well, which is kind of cool. And so for that year, I was still working full-time as a doctor in the UK's National Health Service on the obstetrics and gynecology department during COVID, during the pandemic. But I had this team of 3 other people around me who were helping with stuff. And again, that really started to skyrocket our growth and our revenue as well. Stage 3, running the business full time. Then in August 2020, I decided to take a break from full-time medicine, intending to travel the world. And then obviously COVID was a thing, and therefore I couldn't do any traveling at all. And so what was meant to be a kind of working 4 hours a week on the business while traveling the world ended up being just actually focusing on the business, the YouTube channel, all of our other stuff full time. And that's basically what I've been doing for the last year since taking a break from medicine. And this has been a really exciting time because our team has gone from 4 of us now to 10 or 11 of us. So like we hired 1 new person just last week, and I'm learning a hell of a lot of stuff. Like there's so much in the realm of how to run a business, like how corporations run businesses and structure businesses and organizational charts and like delegation, ownership, accountability, one-on-one meetings, how to hire people, how to fire people. Thankfully, I haven't had to fire anyone yet. There's all of this stuff, which is all like, you know, in the corporate/business world that I've never, like in the past, I never really thought it would be useful for me because I would think, oh, meetings are a waste of time. What's the point of having goals? Goals and metrics are totally pointless. I'm not gonna have KPIs. KPIs are so corporate, all of that kind of stuff. But I realized that over the last like 4 years, I think I'd been throwing out the baby with the bathwater, as they say, and just rejecting all of this corporate stuff just because it's corporate. But now that we have like lots of people in the team, I'm starting to realize that, oh my God, like businesses have been setting goals and KPIs and metrics and stuff for like, you know, generations. And there is a reason that they do it. And there is a reason why it works. And things like quarterly reviews and having policies for stuff and having systems for stuff. It's all stuff that I never thought I'd be doing when I was a solo entrepreneur because I was just being a technician and getting the job done. But I've realized over the last year that the role of a manager as well is just a ridiculously important role, and one in which I need to improve in so many different ways. Every week, I feel like I'm learning new stuff about being a manager and being a good leader, hopefully. You know, how to talk to someone about negotiating a salary raise. Not something I ever thought I'd ever be doing, but having read some books about it now, and you know, I've got coaches to help with this as well. I can feel myself leveling up basically every week while I've been running this business. There's a few lessons that I found particularly helpful. Number 1, again, is just the incredible power of giving people ownership of a project and letting them run with it. And as long as I set reasonable criteria for what I want and what success looks like, which admittedly I'm still pretty bad at, then people will just take the thing and run with it. And that just feels absolutely magical when I've got this team of 11 people around me who can execute on my ideas without me having to do the work as well. Another interesting one is actually like the power of goals and the power of having a clear direction in what you're doing. In the past, I've been historically very anti-goal, thinking that, oh, what's the point of having goals because they're not really within our control. Let's just kind of, as long as the numbers are roughly going up, who cares? It's all hunky-dory, let's just have fun and go along. But what I've realized over the last year is that goals are really powerful in like setting a direction for where the business is going. But they're also very powerful as like a motivating and strategizing tool for our team members. Like it's a thing in my head about how I want the business to grow and how I want the YouTube channel to grow and all our different platforms and our courses and the book that I'm writing, but turning them into like a series of specific, measurable, and attainable, realistic, like timely, like turning them into a series of SMART goals. In the past, I was always like, oh, SMART goals, this is all just BS, who cares? But now I realize that power. And then now that we've got some sense of like SMART goals within the business, now the team members can take those goals and reverse engineer strategies from the number that we want to hit. And those strategies have been really helpful. And every time I think about setting goals for the team, I'm always surprised by how well they seem to work. And one thing I'm still struggling with, admittedly, is like now that there's so much stuff to do, and in fact, now while not working as a doctor, I feel like I have more stuff on my calendar and more stuff on my plate than I did while I was working full time and running this business on the side. But now my calendar just gets full up with random stuff like calls and meetings, and it's all like important stuff. Like the job of a leader is basically to have meetings. But I've been finding over the last few weeks that I haven't actually been making time for myself to kind of sit down and actually write the book that I'm supposed to be writing. I haven't really made any progress on that in the last few weeks, which is kind of embarrassing. And so what I'm trying to work towards now is like time blocking parts of my own day that are purely for deep work that I'm going to do myself, and kind of let the team fit their schedules around that. And this is a lesson that's useful whatever stage of your life journey, entrepreneur journey, creator journey that you're at. Just, it's incredibly powerful to just time block a few hours, a few times a week where you can make progress on your most important project. And I found that back in the day where I felt I had more time in my life to do that, I was making more progress personally. Whereas now that I feel like my time is scattered all over the place, I'm trying to kind of wrestle some control back. But hey, it's all a work in progress. That's something I'm struggling with right now. And obviously none of this would have been possible without the support of you guys, the audience, for watching the videos, for subscribing. Do hit that subscribe button if you want. And if you enjoy the tips in this video, you might like to check out this video over here, which is how I manage my time, which is more like general useful tips on time management that I've learned over the last 4 years while running this business part-time. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.